If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside, of course, each and every week is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we're your hosts here on the Women of Golf. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's as well as can be expected. We're battening down the hatches once again. Hurricane Zeta, that's what it's called now, is coming up from through Mexico and into the Gulf. So the Gulf Coast up here, right from Florida over to, I guess, Texas again, is looking for its seventh hurricane of the season. It doesn't sound like this one's going to be bad. So we're battening down the hatches, as I said, Cindy. But other than that, I'm doing great. Just unbelievable.
Well. Well, you know what?
Well,
all we have in Buffalo is snow. So
yeah,
you're welcome to come on up.
Yeah, I might have to. I might have to. I don't know if I can handle any more of these. We've been very, very blessed. I mean, obviously some folks have really been hit hard this season, but it's just, and the crazy thing is, Cindy, is that it's the same area. The last, and this will be, I think, storm number 4 that's hit the exact same area of coastline. Lake Charles, Biloxi, and New Orleans, and that. I mean, I don't know how much more they can take. I mean, I know they're used to getting these storms, but not back to back to back to back like this. So certainly our thoughts and prayers out to everybody. Do what you need to do to stay safe. But I'll tell you, I think I'd be moving after storm number 2, never mind 4. But all right. Anyways, we got a great show for you this morning. We're going to be starting things off here in just a quick moment. We're going to enter into the no BS zone again. We haven't done that in a little while, and we're going to be talking about 4 tips to improve your short game. And then a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be joined by our very special guest, Taylor Babcock, an LPGA teacher professional, and she actually was on a couple of years ago, and we're welcoming her back again, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about what's been happening in her world these days. But let me remind everybody, of course, the Women of Golf is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top-quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And, of course, Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today. Visit golftipsmag.com. Quick note before we head into the no BS zone. Some of you may have noticed that we've done a little update on the Women of Golf show. We've got some new artwork and some new creative, if you will, and we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on what you think about the new look for the Women of Golf. We're launching a little bit earlier. It was originally, I thought, Cindy, that we might wait until 2021, and I thought, it's been such a depressing year that I thought I'd bring some good news out a little bit earlier. So we're launching a little bit earlier. So be interested here. You can reach out to either myself at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com or Cindy at cindymillergolf.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts on the new look for Women of Golf. Okay, Cindy, so we're going to talk about 4 tips to help improve your short game for some of the folks out there. And this is an area, and I think you would agree, that many, in fact, most amateurs really fall short, no pun intended. This is an area of golf that they really don't pay much attention to, or as much as they should. And this is where you're going to really score. This is where you're going to bring your scores down in this area. And there's just a few things that we're going to talk about. So here are 4 tips that will immediately improve your short game in golf. And again, no particular order, but the first one here, Cindy, is keeping soft hands, particularly when you're chipping. I think, Cindy, a lot of folks end up gripping the club a little bit too tight when they try to chip, and they end up stabbing the club, in behind the ball, when they're practicing their chipping stroke, if you will, and creates a lot of tension in the forearms and so forth. What would you suggest, Cindy? What are some of the tips that you might give to help people kind of keep it relaxed a little bit and keep those soft hands?
Well, there are 2 different shots, and one I would call the elephant trunk, where both arms are kind of stiff, and the ball is back in your stance. If you're right-handed, right is roll, left is loft. And if you're left-handed, right is real high, and left is left is loft and right is run. How am I doing?
Yep.
I haven't had enough coffee yet. But
yeah.
I would tell you that doing elephant trunk with the ball way back in your stance and your arms and your hands really, really tight will help you dig to China. And you will not hit it clean, and it will be chunk and roll, we call it, and you don't want to do that. So I would be very aware of not being super tight.
Yeah,
what do you
Cindy,
think?
What happens a lot of I agree. I think what happens a lot of times, and it really begins with the hands, because that's what's gripping the club. No other part of your body touches the club but your hands. And if you've got excessively a firm grip, and I mean firm by that's extremely tight, as I mentioned a moment ago, you get a lot of tension in your forearms. And what happens is it gets all the way up into your shoulders and your upper body. And what ultimately happens, Cindy, is you just can't really swing freely. And I know you're not taking a full swing with a chip shot, but if you get too much tension in your upper body, and particularly in your arms and your hands, ultimately what happens is it's not a free-flowing motion. So what ends up happening is that the club does not swing. It just it's like a permanent extension of your hands. And ultimately what happens is, as I said, it kind of sticks in behind the ball, and you'll hit it fat, or you'll chunk it, and you'll come up and either blade the shot, or you'll just end up hitting it further than what you want. So you want to be very soft, I think. And it should be a free-flowing, kind of a smooth motion. And again, it begins with the hands. Keeping them a little bit softer allows more flexibility. And, just an example, you want to release that tension, as I said, in the forearms for a smoother stroke. And then you want to open your stance, and again, using your chipping swing and sort of aiming at the back of the ball. So if you practice this technique until it feels sort of second nature to grip the club lightly when chipping towards the green, if you do that, you're going to find that you're going to make better contact with the ball, and you're going to get better results. And that's ultimately what you want. And that's from any distance, that whether you're right up sort of in the collar of the green and you're just hitting a little chip just to get the ball rolling, or if you're a little further off the green and you want to get maybe a bump and run, which we'll talk about here in a few moments. But keep the hands soft. I guarantee you're going to get much better results. Wouldn't you agree, Cindy?
Absolutely.
That was the long-winded. That was the long-winded version, by the way, everybody. Cindy got to it right to the point. The other thing, Cindy, is I had to throw that in there. The other one is to be aware of the left arm. Your left arm controls your chipping stroke. Even though both hands and both arms are involved, the stroke should begin with your left arm and wrist starting the action rather than pulling with your right arm or pushing a lot of times. So when it's time, let the left arm also control the downswing. The left arm leads both the backswing and the downswing, and keep your eyes glued to a dimple in the center of your ball. Aim for that spot when you connect your club face to the ball. So again, and obviously the opposite for left-handed golfers, that would be your right arm. But in this case, we're going to talk about the right-handed golfer. Maybe touch a little bit about the importance, Cindy, of keeping, being conscious of that left arm, because I think a lot of people end up especially your right-handed golfers, get too much of the right arm involved at the incorrect time, and it actually ends up overtaking, and a lot of problems happen, especially with impact. What are your thoughts?
I don't really agree. I believe that the arms should, swing together. And I believe, like, if you're talking about a chip flies short and rolls long, and a pitch flies farther and rolls less. So what I would tell you is that I believe that the right palm tosses if you're right-handed, the right palm is tossing underhanded towards the target. Now, I don't want you to be flippy and make it go left of the world, but I believe that if the left arm leads too much too soon, you can start shanking.
Right.
And what I see is the old man chip yip a lot. And I call it that because a lot of older guys get the chip yips. And the poor guys are freaked out, right?
Right.
And that's because their left arm is way too tight, and it's pulling the grip there first, which makes the face be wide open, which makes the ball go dead right. And then it becomes, mental. So I would say relax both arms and allow right palm to toss under where you want the ball to go. So I would argue with that.
Yeah, I think let me preface it this way, and I do agree with you. I think what's really trying to be said here, and what I was referring to is you want obviously a combination of both. You do have to engage obviously both. I think what I'm suggesting to guard against is having too much of the right dominant in that stroke, because again, what happens is, even though, and you're right, you have to have sort of that feel of sort of tossing the ball underhanded with your right hand. What happens a lot of times is golfers sometimes, especially if they're right-handed or right arm dominant, is they overtake, and a lot of things can happen that way if you get too much of the right involved too quickly. So you're right. I think it has to be an equal balance with both, and I think it's okay to have a little bit of your left arm leading a little bit, but you're right. If you do it too much, then you end up pulling the handle through, as they say, and opening that face up too much, and then you get into, as you said, the old man yips. So definitely don't want to do that. So I agree with you. I confess I agree with you. I think that some of the old and that's and this is recorded too, by the way, folks, so you can play it back and hear me say that. I agree with Cindy Miller. No, that's a great point. You're right. I think if you get too left arm dominant, you run the risk of actually not making good square and solid contact. So I would agree with that. I would say that's probably one that needs to have a better control with both hands. All right. As I mentioned, we were going to talk about the bump and run. This is a shot that you want to really embrace, I think. A lot of times you find yourself, Cindy, you've missed the green. You're not that far away. It's no longer a pitch shot. You want to be able to chip the shot in order to get it. It's maybe a little bit too far off, or the lie is not conducive to using your putter. Sometimes if you're off the green, you can use your putter. And a bump and run. And the reason why you'd want to use a bump and run is you want to get the ball rolling as soon as possible. So it's in the air less and on the putting surface more. So a good bump and run. What's your technique, Cindy, do you think for setting up for a good bump and run?
Well, the ball should be back in your stance. So if you're right-handed, it's on your right foot. And if you're left-handed, it's on your left foot for low. So right is roll and left is low, depending on whether or not you're right or left-handed. And then your weight should be on your front foot, which will make your hands be ahead of the ball, which will take loft off the shot, which is what you do want to have happen because it's bump and roll. And then I would use a very low lofted club. Depends on how far you want it to fly and how far you want it to roll. So you could use a 789P gap sand. I would never use a lob wedge to bump and roll. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's two camps in this. There's some professionals that like to stick with one club. I don't agree with that. I think the circumstances dictate the lie, of course. I think it's good to have different options. Like you said, it can be as little as a 7-iron. I've even seen in some cases, especially with some of these ginormous greens that you see at some of the resort courses, I've even seen people pull out a 6-iron and hit a bump and run just because they want to get it running quickly. It's a little bit too far. They don't want to putt it, or maybe they're in the fringe a little bit, or in the first cut of rough a little bit, and it's a little bit gnarly, and they don't think they're going to make good contact with their putter. But it's a long way to the hole. So I've seen some use their 6-iron. So really, just to sort of sum it up, the bump and run is really, I think, a very powerful shot. You want to use the ground as your friend, in other words. So you want, in a case where you have to shoot over obstacles, and I'm talking small obstacles, obviously you're not going to do this over a bunker, or overcome a bad lie with a full bump and run that rolls across the green with ease. So aim for a spot before the hole and let your ball hit that spot, then roll towards the hole on the green. So when swinging, position, as Cindy mentioned, position the ball toward the back in your stance. Be sure of your angles, the speed of the green, and your club selection. That's where that comes in. And again, if you've got a greater distance that it needs to roll, then you might want to use your 7, 8, or 9. If it's a shorter, in other words, if the flag is cut closer to you, then you might want to use your 9 or even your pitching wedge, and sometimes even maybe a sand wedge. I agree. I wouldn't use a lob wedge. But so you want to sort of see things in your mind's eye, and you want to pick a spot. And you don't want to pick a spot, unlike a pitch shot where you're pitching at a greater distance and it's rolling a little or running a little bit shorter. Here you're going to pitch it or chip it shorter, and it's going to run a little bit longer. So you want to pick a spot as soon as possible on the green that's going to get the ball rolling to where you want it to end up. And understand, again, if the green is undulated, you want to make sure that you're going to pick a spot and read the line before you do that. Otherwise, you're going to end up, in left field, as they say. So I agree with everything you said. I think it's a great idea. Pick the club, put the ball back in your stance, and just a nice, simple stroke, and make sure you pick a target before the ultimate target to land the ball on. Some great advice there, Cindy. Thank you.
You know what? I just have to say one more thing.
Yep.
I just have to say one. Make sure that you pick a spot where you want it to land, because what I see so many people doing is looking at the hole, and then they fly it too far, and then they're over the green.
Right.
So I just have to, reiterate that.
Yeah, that's a big one, and I agree. And you know what? I think as long as, and it doesn't have to be, we're talking a spot. We're not talking a spot the size of the ball. You can be, you can think of imagine it's a foot in diameter, or even 2 feet. One of the things that we used to do years ago, I don't know, some of the pros probably do things differently, is now they might put a small little chalk or something, but we used to put a towel. We used to lay a small towel out on the green, and you had to land it on the towel as your spot. And so you want to pick a spot and get the ball rolling as quickly. But yeah, you're exactly right. Don't be looking at the target in your mind's eye, and you're not flying it to that target. You're hitting your intermediary target just shortly onto the green. So find your target, gauge how far the ball is going to roll, and pick your club appropriately, and experiment. Get out there on the practice your practice facility at your local course and practice that, because I guarantee if you master the bump and run, it's going to save you a ton of strokes overall. So make sure you do that. And one of the last ones, Cindy, and I know there's plenty others, but these are some that you'd be surprised a lot of people don't think of, and that is your swing tempo. In the short game, the last thing you want to do is to rush your swing in the short game. Your swing tempo should stay the same for your backswing as well as your downswing. A sort of a 1-2 count on the way up means a 1-2 count on the way down. Use different tempos and speeds depending on your shot. You'll develop different tempos that work best for different shot scenarios in your short game. So find your rhythm and stick with it. And that's the key there, is finding your rhythm to make things successful. What are your thoughts there, Cindy? Do you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
No, I agree. Tempo is more important than people realize. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And even if you just say to yourself, tick-tock. No, not tick-tock. It's tick-tock.
Right.
Da-dum, da-dum. And again, if you played an instrument or you were in chorus or you're a dancer, that'll make sense to you. If you have absolutely no music or rhythm, it might be a little more difficult. You might want to count to yourself. But tempo, timing, and rhythm are really, really, really important.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough that you want to find your rhythm. This is one of the big things that we see, and we see a lot of amateurs wanting to emulate, maybe their favorite player, so they'll watch them and they'll say, okay, I'm going to do it like that. But maybe that particular player has a different body rhythm than you do. Maybe they are a little quicker in their pace. They might even walk a little quicker. Maybe you're a little bit slower. And if you try to get out of your natural body rhythm, then ultimately what ends up happening is you essentially get out of your own comfort zone. And that's a recipe, I think, for success or for failure right there, and not success. So one way to do that, and again, we can't emphasize enough, is you need to get out and you need to practice. And these are things, what's really great is you don't necessarily have to go to the golf course. If you've got a backyard and you keep your grass fairly short, these are things that you can work on your rhythm. You can even do it in the house. You don't even have to use a golf ball. You can just pick up a club and you can just kind of, gently stroke it back and forth and just kind of feel your rhythm. And just if it feels natural, if you feel, especially if you take a little bigger swing, if you feel yourself kind of wobbling a little bit or out of balance, then that means you're probably swinging a little bit quicker than you need to. So slow it down a little bit. Experiment. Find what your body rhythm suggests, and that's what you want to work with. And again, as Cindy said, you want that sort of 1-2. You don't want 1-2. You don't want to speed it up in the downswing, and that's something that I think amateurs do a lot as well, right, Cindy?
Absolutely. I think they get afraid, and they anticipate the outcome. And when you do that, you're trying to control where the ball goes rather than deciding on the shot you want to hit, committing to your decision, and then producing the shot. So it's really important that you stop for, a second or two longer and say, is this what I want to do? Is this where I want it to go? How do I want it to get there? And then committing to that decision and pulling off the shot.
Yeah, I think, and that's exactly right. I think a lot of players, especially our amateur players, because they don't practice enough, they don't build and develop that sort of confidence in their shot making. So a lot of times what happens is when they take that initial backswing, right, subconsciously they think, oh, that's too much, or I've snatched it away too quickly, so I've got to slow it down. Or the opposite, I've taken it back, and that's not the right speed. I need to speed it up. And they end up kind of slapping at the ball and getting drastic results. So, again, this is why it's important, whether you're, at home or out the golf course, to practice these types of moves and things like that to develop what your tempo, what your swing tempo is. Otherwise, you're in a situation where you're kind of second guessing yourself all the time, and that's just not going to help you in the long run. So whether you're pitching, chipping, or flopping your short game in golf, as I said, practice is your one step to better golf. Repetition for muscle memory is the best way for a consistent swing every time your club face strikes the golf ball. So those are just some things. Keep your hands soft for your chipping, really for everything, but for chipping particularly. And we're going to change one. I still think a little bit, you want to keep that left arm engaged and not let the right arm overtake too much. But I agree with you, Cindy. I think you do have to. It's a two-arm. You're playing golf with both arms, both hands, and you need to have them both engaged equally. Bump and run is another one. Again, go out and master that, and I guarantee you're going to start lowering your scores. And finally, your swing tempo. Find out what tempo is yours, and that's something that you can work with. Cindy, I know that you guys work with your students in doing that, is sort of finding their tempo. And everyone's different, right? Every one of them's different.
Yeah, they are. I mean, some people do things slowly. Some people do things quicker. You have to find exactly what your tempo and pace are. And once you do, everything's going to be easier.
Yeah, and don't try to change that. If you've got, as I said, if you've got a little slower or quicker, whichever the case is, if that feels natural to you, then don't let anybody try to change that, because that's going to end up putting you out of balance. You look at some of the players that come to mind, and I know I've said these guys before, but like an Ernie Els or a Freddie Couples, and then on the other side you look at somebody like a Nick Price on the men's tours. They were all, Freddie and Ernie Els were kind of a slower, sort of a smoother, swing tempo, where Nick Price was the opposite. And I'm sure the same could be said on with some of the female golfers out there in the LPGA. There were some that had a quicker tempo and some that had a slower tempo. So, if you're watching these guys and gals out on tour, it's okay to pick up some pointers here and there, but don't try to adapt somebody else's rhythm if it's not naturally your rhythm, because it's just not going to produce the results that you want. It's going to actually throw you off kilter a little bit. So certainly okay to watch them and to look for certain key things that maybe you can adapt, but don't try to change your swing to match somebody's swing that you've seen on TV, because more than likely that's going to hurt you in the long run. So anything else, Cindy, that you can think of that we've missed?
I can tell you that if you play little games, of which I am creating a games and challenges course, if you're interested, email me at cindy@cindymillergolf.com with scoring that you can do all winter, either inside or out, that it will really help you learn to score, because nobody hits all 18 greens all the time. So I would just say, I know it's boring, I know it hurts your back, just do it. Because if you practice, you will get better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We can't emphasize that enough. That in my opinion is probably one of the biggest causes of scoring badly. Obviously, there's technique issues and things like that need to be addressed, and that's where your coach or your instructor comes in. But a lot of it is lack of practice. There's nothing worse than giving a lesson and you've got one set up for 2 weeks down the road, and the person comes back and how was this working, or how did you find this, the drills that I gave you? Well, I didn't get a chance to get out to the range, or I didn't get a chance to really work on that or play again. And then you end up having to repeat most of the last lesson over again in a recap because they didn't follow through with your instruction the first time around. So, we want to help you. We want to improve your game. The short game is obviously an area that can really, really help you to shoot lower scores. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter what we show you, what you teach, what we teach you. If you're not going to go out there and put them into practice and work on some of the things that we're showing you, you're not going to improve. And then you're only going to be upset, and we're going to bear the brunt of it. So we would rather you go out and work on your game and become a better golfer, because it certainly helps us in the long run as well. And if you're not prepared to do that, then maybe you need to consider doing something else. And we certainly don't want to shy anybody away from golf. We want to embrace people and welcome. No, but it's true, Cindy. Let's be honest. I mean, let's be honest. You know, we've had these discussions before. There's nothing worse. You know, it's like a job. It's like a job. If you're going to go out and, you know, whether it be sales or marketing or what have you, if you're not going to put the time and effort to prepare for that or maybe a presentation, you know, in front of a client, you know, you're going to go out and you're going to work on those things, I would hope. Otherwise, it's not going to be a very successful presentation. Am I right?
Correct.
Get out and practice. You'll find you're going to be better. Otherwise, don't show up. Only kidding. All right, we got a great guest coming up, joining us now. Let me just tell everybody or remind everybody a little bit about her. Of course, I'm talking about Taylor Babcock. She is an LPGA Class A teacher professional, and a little bit about her is she graduated of Barry University with a bachelor's in sports management and a minor in business, and she's also a U.S. Kids certified coach, an NCAA collegiate coach, and she's level 1 TPI certified, and 2014 USGA Women's Amateur Qualifier, 2014 New England Women's Open Low Amateur, and 2014 Connecticut Women Open Low Amateur as well. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest, Taylor Babcock.
Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
I'm doing great. How about you?
We're doing well. I'm currently in Virginia on my way down south, making the transition through as an assistant pro when you go the north-south route, coming from Country Club of Fairfield in Fairfield, Connecticut, and going down to Indian Creek Country Club in beautiful Miami, Florida.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Oh,
this
nice.
is it's great. It'll be my third season at Indian Creek, and I just finished my first season at Country Club of Fairfield. So it was definitely an exciting time after quarantine lifted and everything. So, but how are you both?
We're doing well. Well, I'm doing well. I don't know about Ted.
Yeah. Yeah. Physically, I'm doing well. Mentally, I'm not too sure. That'll be debatable at the end of the show. Let me just go real quick.
I want to ask questions. I got to ask questions.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right, go ahead.
All right. So talk to me, because I saw that on your bio, and I'm like, oh, she's going to Florida. So when do you start at Indian Creek in Miami?
So I'll start on Thursday. Coming from, so looking just as a whole, looking at, I mean, there are so many different variables with what's going on today, but Florida doesn't have any quarantine restrictions, just social distancing guidelines. So I will start on Thursday when I get there, and then go from there. For 6
now, if
months,
you were coming back up, you would have to
correct.
quarantine for 2 weeks, yeah, because otherwise I'd be visiting my granddaughters.
No, exactly. So Connecticut, definitely different states have their restrictions. So that's one of the things that I'll look at with Connecticut, and it'll more than likely, when I go out in May, it'll be a 2-week quarantine period before I can start.
Now, when you say I start, what are your responsibilities while you're there?
It's a great question. So my title is assistant golf professional, but at Indian Creek, I'm also I'm the only female teacher on staff, as well as I run the tournaments for women's and mixed couples events, which we definitely have in a normal calendar year. We have 2 tournaments a week, which are very well attended. So yeah, wow. So it'll just on the women's and mixed couple side. The men also have their weekly Thursday events, but we'll keep seeing what we'll see what happens when I get down there. But I'm sure we'll have a few of our members stayed down there throughout the summer. Typically the season is about 5 months, and then they're members at other clubs, or they have family elsewhere, or they have family internationally. So they travel during the summer. But a few from what I know did stay around. So it'll be really good to see them. It's great membership, and then we'll just kind of see what the season brings. I'm not sure what to expect at the moment.
Now, let me ask, do you have shop responsibilities, or are you just a teacher and you produce all the golf tournaments?
At Indian Creek Country Club, I do have a bit of shop responsibility, and which is normal. That's spread throughout all the assistants going from there. So that's definitely part of paying your dues and learning more about the industry and making sure that you know how to help and run a shop. Our shop manager, Elsie Gorma, she's fantastic. She's there year round and coming into her second season at the club. So the membership really loves her. It's fantastic.
How many members do you have at Indian Creek?
Oh, that's not a number that I know. They keep that close. Close. I don't think they want that public.
A lot?
But very good. Maybe somewhere around 300. I definitely could be off.
Okay, so it's not a huge. Yeah, that's fine.
No,
I just wanted to know if it was very, very, very exclusive or it was a normal club. That's basically what my question was, because that's really participation at its finest. That's great.
Yeah, it definitely is. But
then
on the. Oh, go ahead.
Well, for our listeners' sake, it's good for you to work in the shop so you get to meet the members. Because otherwise, how would they really know if they want to take a lesson from you until they get to know you?
Absolutely. Even answering the phone and saying hi, how can I help you? And it really is, when you're at a club, it really is or even public facility, really, or if you even have your own academy. It is very, very personal, and you are in their life on a almost daily basis.
That's awesome. Ted, go ahead.
Well, Taylor, welcome to the show, and I don't know how much of our earlier conversation you picked up, but I wanted to ask you a question about practice. I know that you work with a lot of different students since you've been a teacher professional. And I really got two parts to the question. The first part, do you find, because I know you work with kids and I know you also work with adults as well, who do you think is more likely going to practice what you preach, so to speak, the older crowd or the younger ones?
Well, I'll definitely say that if you can get the parents to practice, then typically you'll see the kids out. So that definitely, practice is, the more you practice, the less you get. Bottom line,
right?
The more experience you get. If you maybe, like, let's say you finish up your round and you just go to the putting green and you make 3-4 footers, you then have that as your last memory of, I made those putts. Okay. Then you get this positive reinforcement, you get the mental imagery. So practice is important. But I would definitely, on my side of it, just from COVID and what happened at Country Club of Fairfield, we are the membership. You really, no one no one could go on vacation or go see family, and everybody's at the club, and that's golf became one of the activities early on that was available and open. And so you would see people book their tee time, come out and practice before. I would say definitely this year more than most at this club, and then with other colleagues that I've spoken to, it definitely opened up a window of opportunity for people to go, oh, here's how I get better. It was one of the exciting things to see was really on the women's side. We had 17 at Fairfield. We had 17 women get a GIN handicap so that they could start posting scores, which was huge. 17 women signed up for some had played golf, some hadn't. But that was a big increase, and in an unfortunate circumstance, that became an outlet. And so those that did start posting scores realized, oh, okay, well, yes, I can play, but I also need to take a lesson. I don't understand this, or I need to go work through this for just a moment. Because practice doesn't mean an hour. Sometimes it can mean 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think the one positive really that's come out of this whole issue this season with the pandemic is golf has definitely benefited in many ways, not just in increase in rounds that have been played, but it's opened up a door for people to practice. I mean, there's wasn't really a lot of other things to do. I mean, most of the movie centers were closed down, so you couldn't even go and see a movie, obviously, because of social distancing and so forth. And with a lot of Hollywood shut down, there wasn't really any new movies coming out. So there really wasn't a lot to do, and I'm sure you probably saw an uptick of families coming out to the golf course as well. So let me ask you, just to stick on the practice side of things a little bit, because we all know this as teacher professionals that it's hard sometimes to get our students to, really buckle down and start working on the areas that we need them to work on in order to improve. So what are some things that you have found successful for you that maybe you can share with not just our listeners, general, golfing listeners, but maybe some other professionals that are tuning into the show as well, that they could maybe incorporate to make it more fun and interesting for their students to want to go out and practice? So what were some things that you found to make it fun, in other words?
Yeah, no, great question. The first part of that is knowing what to practice. I mean, we have that big word of practice, and then we get there and we go, okay, now what? I'm at the range. and so one of the things that I like asking for those who want to play and understand what they should work on is, okay, let's track your greens and regulations. So let's start from the green back. How many putts did you have per round? How many greens in regulation? Then from there, fairways in regulation. And then if you on the college side of it, it's when you get more in depth, and there's this thing called Golf Stat, and it really tracks your percentage of misses. Like, let's say you're hitting into the green. Well, it wants to know if you hit over the green, if you were short, if you missed left or missed right. So you can really you can really pick apart and get in depth. But as a general, just fairways, greens, putts, know those, and then start to say, okay, what clubs should I hit in from there? So so just targeting and understanding your game, and then understanding, okay, my 9 irons I seem to be on these short par fours I seem to be great with, but it's these long irons I just don't understand why I keep missing to the right or why I'm pulling it left. I can't seem to get this. So targeting it that way, I think that's a great way to start for those who do play and want to understand their game. On the junior side of things, especially with how many juniors we had home now and not going off to summer camps, In Connecticut, you were allowed to no more than groups of 4. And so at a time, I'd have 4 juniors and masks on and making games out of it. Not always a prize game, because you look at your audience sometimes, and some kids get upset, some don't. But definitely making games out of it. US Kids does a great job with prepping you and giving you an outline on some of those.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let me ask one last question, and I want to kind of shift gears here a little bit and kind of open up the floor for those that maybe are interested in trying out for collegiate golf. What would be the first step in seeking out a college golf team, in your opinion?
Well, Ping, I've been out of the college recruiting side for probably about 3-4 years now. But Ping College Golf Guide does a great job at giving you stats on the team, where you might fit into the team based on your scores. That's a great guide just to kind of sift through a lot of data. But it comes down to, are you good enough to play Division I? Are you a late bloomer like myself and you want to try for Division II or Division III, where it's heavily academics and yet you still get to thrive on the competition? You have to figure out what you want out of a college first, and then go into the process. Because definitely the more competitive and the more AJGA or these big junior tours, the more you play those, the more you're then going to be seen and probably end up playing Division I at a higher level than those who just play at the state level, which would be like the Connecticut State Golf Association or the Florida State Golf Association. Each state has their own association, and those tournaments mean a lot. But these junior tours where parents are they're going the extra mile and paying a lot of money to do this in order to prep their kids for school. So it just depends on financially where you are, what you can do, and there's nothing wrong with either. And going to Ping College Golf Guide, and then also just being proactive, reaching out to a coach, but not just sending an email, because kind of like these like LinkedIn, for example, if you send a resume, well, it's just going to get filtered, and you need to have some sort of connection, and that's learning to call and being comfortable talking on a phone and introducing yourself and what would you offer to the program? What makes you interested in that coach, that school? So you have to have somewhat of an emotional tie or want to play or be there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you have to I just want to make one final point, and then, Cindy, I'll pass it back to you. I think you have to be willing to, step out of the box, so to speak, and reach out to the coaches, as you said, and be engaging. I think the worst thing you can do is just fire off a resume, or and it works with jobs as well. Is it just gets put into the pile, and there are a lot of these, not just in golf, but in regular business as well. They're sometimes dealing with 1,500 or more job applicants. So yours isn't necessarily going to stand out, but if they put a face to the paper and you get a chance to engage them and find out what it is specifically they're looking for, and obviously that's going to happen with with the golf teams as well. So that's a great point.
One last point. It is intimidating. We're talking about a college golf. We're talking about a a freshman in high school or sophomore, junior, and it's nice to have your parents help you with the introduction. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, you have to take over the conversation because that's what the coach wants. They're not recruiting the parents. Yes, the parents are definitely part of it, and the coach would love to have a relationship with them as well. But their number one priority is you, and so they want to get to know you, not what your parents' goals are, but they want to know what inspires you to play, what inspires you to want to be there, what motivates you. So
right, exactly.
So being able to step up and step into the arena, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, and it's not easy for some, I'm sure. Everybody's different, but all right, Cindy. Go ahead. Back to you, Cindy. Go ahead.
Can you tell? Let's say there's some young players, junior players on the call who want to play college golf, and they might be a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore, and they play in some HJGT tournaments, and they might be shooting 82 to 88, and they want to play on a D1 team. How would you tell them to close the gap? Again, we have a saying in our household, let your clubs do the talking, and what did you shoot? So how would you say that in a nice way? Again, they might look at somebody and say, well, their 3, 4, and 5, and 6 player are shooting the same scores as me. I mean, we have to nicely say to them, well, the coach isn't looking for a new 3, 4, or 5 player. So can you help me with that?
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I would say on a general scale, college coaches know that your first semester you're more than likely going to shoot 5 strokes higher than what your high school average is. You're playing longer distances now. So even though you feel like your score is like, let's say you average 77, and you see that, oh, well, that sophomore's averaging 77. That's a different scale. So it's not scaled on the same level. Definitely, I like the example that you gave where it's a junior player focusing on AJGA events and shooting mid to high 80s. Well, I would say take a step back, go back to the state level. Try and place better at those. Make it worth those trips for if you can get into the AJGA events. Because you don't want to go somewhere and just shoot a mediocre round. Part of it is learning to win, and when you gain that confidence. And I'm sure you've definitely in your career, Cindy, I'm sure you've felt that of when you break into a top 10 or you win an event, it's a different level of confidence that you go into. And so I would definitely say win, and it's not that it's lower tier, just win at a certain level or place in a top 10, and then give yourself that credit to go try and break into the next level. Use each as a stepping stone. But don't just keep putting yourself in the arena where you're just going to be shooting these 80, mid-80 rounds. And maybe if that's how you're playing, that's good for you, and that's perfect if you want to, depending on the school's average or what the coach is looking for. So not that I want to knock an 80. Granted, it's not a Division I score, but maybe it's good enough for another school. But just seeing where you are and what level you should be looking at. If it's the state, maybe it's even just high school, then it's going into a state-run golf association, and then playing different junior tours.
Totally agree. Again, the other side of this is I want them to not look at it as failure, but look at it as learning.
Right.
What were you thinking when you were out there? Were you kept missing fairways and missing greens. Were you afraid of the shot? It's okay. And then until you look in the mirror to figure out what caused the poor swing, we're not going to fix it. And it's all about learning. It's all about learning. So I tell them to embrace it instead of, oh, God, nobody's going to want me. Well, nobody's going to want you any other place either until you learn these lessons. And it's something that we all have to go through. No one's exempt.
No. I'll give you an anecdotal story. In my junior career, I wasn't the prodigy or really had a ton of wins under my belt. But my senior year in for the Oregon State high school championships, I placed in the top 10. That was my biggest goal. Did that, and then I get to college and I realized that I'm not a top 10 player. I made the travel team once my freshman year, and so I developed this chip on my shoulder of I'm in a new place. I don't quite understand it. Why are they better than me? And so I just let this weight and this gravity just put me down, and my attitude started to affect not other players and other coaches, just the coaches. I'm typically this warm, energetic person, and I just was getting digging myself into a hole. And I had the coach look at me at the end of the season. She said, "Taylor, if you don't pick up your attitude, your scholarship will be in jeopardy for the next season." And that clicked. That clicked of going, oh, this isn't just about me. This is about the team. This is how do I need to improve my attitude and outlook so that not only do I play better, but I also make those who are around me want to be around me. So it's definitely attitude and outlook. So as you mentioned, so it's going in that direction.
Wow, good for you for turning it around.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, Taylor, to make, because golf predominantly is an individual sport, as we know. But now you're in the presence of teammates, and they're counting on you certainly to do your best, but to be part of the team. And if you're going out there and it's all about me, not everybody can pull it off. And now you've got others to consider, and that was that was some great words, and that was your moment that your coach stepped up and said to you, "Hey, Taylor, you need to sort of proverbially get in the game, in a manner of speaking. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences." And that was, I'm sure, as you pointed out, a defining moment in your career.
It definitely was. It was either I was lucky enough to get a 50% academic and 50% athletic scholarship. So for out-of-state tuition, which was somewhere around $50,000 at the time in 2009, 2010, and there was that really set in. So so it is. It's definitely. I mean, playing is definitely about. It's not just about collegiate team or being at a country club, but your attitude and your outlook very much determine how you're gonna play. If you show up and you think, oh man, this is just not my day. Maybe you've spilled the coffee on the way over. Maybe something else has happened. But everything is, as I've come to find, is definitely your attitude and outlook.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, Taylor, unfortunately, we're out of time, but we want to thank you for joining us this morning here on the Women of Golf Show, and we want to wish you a successful second half of the season down at Indian Creek Country Club in Miami. And for those of you that are in the Miami area and you want to reach out, you can get in touch with Taylor. You're going to be starting, you said, Thursday at the club?
Yep, on Thursday.
All right. Well, good luck this season down in Miami, and help lots of golfers out there and have a lot of fun. And again, thank you for joining Cindy and I this morning on the Women of Golf. We really appreciate you spending time.
Well, I really appreciate you both. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a great season.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was special guest Taylor Babcock, and as she mentioned, she's on her way down to Indian Creek Country Club in Miami, so you can check her out there and get in touch and take a lesson, or visit her in the pro shop when she's there. All right, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Cindy, as always, it's a pleasure. Don't be too cold up. Feel free to come down to Florida after the storm blows past this week, and enjoy some nice weather down here. On that note, God bless everybody. Have a great week. And on behalf of Cindy Miller, I'm Ted Odorico. Thanks for joining us this morning on the Women of Golf. We'll see you next time. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Cindy.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO, and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.